Okay. Hey, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me now. This is Lauren Landrum with Prima Eye Group. For those of you who don't know me, I am the marketing consultant here. So I'm really excited to have this webinar today because you've probably been hearing a lot from us about this great new program. And we're just excited to share more and really tell you more about what it's all about. And you've been hearing a lot from me, but luckily you won't have to hear from me the whole time now. It's going to be also Sam McKevney is here from Market Force, and he has been helping us develop this program. And he's going to help share much more insight than I could ever give you about what the program is actually going to look and feel like. So we're going to get started, and I'll let Sam kind of introduce himself really quickly too.
Hey guys, thank you. I appreciate everyone's time and for joining us on this webinar. I'm really excited to share with you what we've got prepared. I think it's going to be a great program, and so I look forward to sharing more and getting your thoughts. Just to give you a little background on myself, my name is Sam McKevney, and I am the Director of Program Development for Market Force. And so I work very closely with all different types of companies, basically across the U.S., across several different industries. And so I really try to learn what is it they're trying to accomplish, what are the key goals, what are their key drivers of the business, and then I help create program architectures that meet those stated needs and really help them take their business to the next level. And so I'm really excited to share with you today what we've put together in combination with Prima, because I think it's really going to do a lot in terms of maximizing your investment in your business.
Thank you. All right, so let me show you quickly what we're going to cover today, just a quick overview. This is the agenda here. We're talking about introducing the program, going to give you a little more background on Market Force. I'm going to tell you a quick story, too, about kind of a test mystery shop that we did here locally in Georgia and how that went down. And then I'm also going to talk about the program benefits, and Sam's going to show you a great overview, some of the reports that you'll actually get out of the program. And we're also going to talk about why it's different and how this can really be something that is unique and special for your practice. And then at the end, of course, we'll have a Q&A session. So you can feel free to type in your questions and submit them into the service as you get them, but we're going to wait until the end just in case we do answer some of those questions as we go along, but we'll get to your questions at the end of the session. So let's talk about just some of the background for Market Force.
Thank you, Lauren. So, as you think about Market Force, one of the things we do is obviously mystery shopping. We also provide survey services as well as a host of other tactical services. But at the end of the day, what we really do is help companies to drive business performance improvement. And we're a bit unique in this space as we really focus at location level improvement. And so what our goal is to really help you as an organization take your investment in your staff, take your investment in programs like this, and really get your return. And so what we've outlined is a program that allows you to first view your business through multiple performance metrics. And examples of these are mystery shopping, surveys. We're going to also be able to host financials. And with that data, we're going to employ a team of PhDs and data scientists who are going to take this information across all the participating locations and start to break down for us what is it that the really good practices do. What differentiates them from others, for example? So in terms of maybe patient experience, patient loyalty, even revenue. And from there, we'll be able to come back with roadmaps for each individual practice on, hey guys, we know this is kind of the formula for success, and here's exactly how you're doing in these areas, which we know are absolutely critical. And so it begins to serve as sort of a roadmap. And so one of the tools that we're going to provide you with is a technology platform that allows you to have access to all this information in one place. So you've got kind of an easy kind of go-to button, if you will, and we'll show some examples of this. But built into that technology are some action planning tools that are really going to allow you to hold your staff accountable and really provide visibility into performance so they know exactly where to improve. And I think the last key element here at the top of this pyramid is consulting. We're going to have a relationship with Prima specifically, but Prima is going to have a relationship with you guys that's going to take all this information, take the technology, take the analytics, and they're going to be able to work with you and coach you based on all this great information that's coming in from not only mystery shoppers, but your patients themselves. And so there's going to be a real opportunity to have a really good lens or vision for what's happening in your business. And we're going to provide you with the ability that, what can you tangibly do to take action as a team? And so as you think about market force, our role is really to bring all these different elements together, simplify it so that you can really maximize your investment in your business.
Thanks. And we're really excited about the way that this partnership is working out, because Market Force is providing a service that we could never build on our own, and you can't get anywhere else on your own as well. So it's really great in that they're going to be providing all the technical details, the heavy lifting, the reports, but we're going to be there on the back end to support you. And I think it's also really great that this program just is going to help us help you in terms of our consulting. It's going to give us a much better lens inside of your practice to figure out, okay, what are some of the pain points that you're dealing with? Where are things going wrong? And sometimes those are things that you don't know necessarily to begin with. And, on our end, we may suspect something, but it's when we're not doing an in-office visit, we don't have, full visibility sometimes through a phone consult to really be able to pinpoint specifics. And this program is going to be able to do that very, very well. And it's exciting for us in that we think it's going to help us better serve you. So let me tell you a little bit about what we did when we were first toying with the idea of doing this program. We wanted to kind of figure out, okay, how could this work? What would be the most important things to measure when we're going through a practice, when a mystery shopper would actually walk through the practice? Now, these are all things that we kind of came up with just to do a test run on our own as Prima. This was independent of Market Force, but we contacted one of our local members here in Georgia and said, hey, let's work together on this, and let us do a secret kind of walk through your practice, just like a regular patient, and measure each step of the patient journey. So we started with, making the appointment and went all the way through when, I was getting my glasses back. And this was really cool because this was a practice that they do very well financially. They're very well regarded. And they also knew we have some room to grow, but sometimes we don't know exactly where that is or what that is. So they were hoping that, this could help them. And it did. So what I did was I went through, and pretty much everything about the initial experience was very good. It was, went off without a hitch. Everything from making the appointment to the exam, the optical experience was pretty good. The checkout was smooth. But everything kind of started falling apart a little bit when it came time for me to get my glasses. And so this was something that, before that part of it, I thought, okay, well, they're going to get a pretty good A+ rating here. But then it quickly turned. So what I did for them, other than, I had some questions that they were specifically looking for that I answered, but I also said, let me do this. I'm going to write a review to kind of tell you about the experience. And this might be something that I would write if I were just a regular patient on Yelp. And this really hit home for them. I gave them 3 out of 5 stars. And I said, hey, everything about the initial part of the experience was great. The staff was helpful. The doctor was friendly and helpful. However, they dropped the ball when it came to my glasses. I was told that it would take only 5 to 7 days to receive my glasses, and it ended up taking 15. And during that time, I had to call twice to find out when they would be ready. Each time I was told that they were waiting for the frame to come in and they would call when it was ready, but they didn't apologize for the delay or keep me up to speed during this process. When the glasses were finally ready, I had to wait 20 minutes in the waiting room before someone brought them out to me. Again, the staff was friendly, but they didn't acknowledge the long wait for my glasses. I'm not really sure I'd go back. So that is something to me that really said, even I was surprised a little bit at my own reaction. And if I didn't know them, and if I was separate from this, and this was just a place of business that I had chosen at random, I definitely would have been unhappy with the way that experience ended up. And you know what? I probably wouldn't have told them about it because in most cases, people either don't ask, or even if you get a regular survey that they send out, most people are just not going to take the time to do that. So either a fake Yelp review or a Yelp review like this would have been written that was somewhat negative, or it just would have gone unnoticed and you wouldn't have known why you lost that patient.
And Lauren, to add to that, I think, as we run these programs, one of the other behaviors that we see is while people are likely to recommend you when they have a good experience, they're very highly likely to throw you under the bus when they have a bad experience. Misery loves company. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times, just anecdotally, I've been out to dinner and somebody says, let me tell you about what happened to me today. Mm-hmm. And it could be as simply as having to wait 20 minutes to get the glasses. But that simple action is enough to lose that customer, not only lose that customer, but have them tell 5, 10, 25 other people about how bad that experience was. And then that tends to damage the brand from there. So right. Very important to make sure we've got visibility through different lenses into what's happening so we can catch these things and make sure these potentially unhappy patients don't fall through the cracks. Mm-hmm. And so we'll talk about some of the benefits and ways that we can help maximize your time spent with these folks.
Definitely. And just to quickly go back to this slide to show you, this is so basic, and this is something that, we're going to be looking at every single step of the patient journey that you see here, but the program itself through Market Force is so much more than these check marks. It's going to be so much more comprehensive. So that's a really exciting part. So we'll get to show you some of that as well. Let's talk a little bit about some of the program benefits, the things that you guys are going to get out of this. Do you want to speak to some of the first ones?
Absolutely. Okay. So guys, first and foremost, the number one thing we want to do is increase revenues. But in order to increase revenues, there's got to be a series of things that take place. So the first thing is we've got to improve patient loyalty. And when we do that, that's going to do two things that are critical to the business. One, it's going to get these folks to come back and visit your practice more often when there's a need. But second, as we just talked about, it's going to get them to refer to friends, family members, and colleagues. And so the key here is how do we then drive these patient loyalty and these patient behaviors that we so desperately desire? And so the key is by starting to improve the patient experience. Again, from start to finish, because anywhere along that process, there's potential for a hiccup. And so if we can streamline that and make sure we're executing at a high level along each step of the way, we improve our chances of delighting that patient and getting him to do those behaviors that we just talked about. And so one of the things that we're looking to do as part of this program is provide you real-time visibility into how your practice is performing, give you the tools that are going to enable you to take action on that. And as a result, we're going to increase those behaviors and start to see eventually increases in revenue. And so that's kind of the premise of this program. And so as you look through those 1 through 5, we're going to talk here in a few seconds about how tactically we're going to get to this. Lauren, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think really, beneficially, you guys are going to be able to, we'll talk more to this later too, but really create a stronger staff culture. I know that so many of you guys have concerns around, HR. There's so many HR questions that we get at Prima, staffing questions and things that can be really difficult to deal with, especially if you don't have a pretty good idea of where things are going wrong to begin with. And even if you do, it can be difficult to still navigate to be able to make a change. So I think in terms of building a better staff culture, a better office culture, this program is going to be fantastic for that. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
So guys, as we dig into some of the nuts and bolts and what we're looking to offer as part of the program, there's really 4 primary components. And the first one we have there is mystery shopping. And mystery shopping is a great objective tool that really focuses on operational execution. So at each step in that patient journey, you as a practice have expectations of how your staff is going to treat that patient. everything from, when they call in, how do they answer the phone, what kind of questions do they ask, what kind of information, how easy do they make it to schedule the appointment, all the way through check-in to finally dispensing of the glasses. The key here is that it's very objective. We want to dig in rather deeply in each of those critical areas to really understand what's happening at each step along the way. And as we start to get more and more data points, as we do more and more mystery shops, we're going to start to see patterns. And so we're really going to be able to drill into where are you effectively performing well and where are your opportunities for improvement. And it's going to be black and white. We try and make it as objective as possible, especially when it comes to the mystery shop. The second component is actually getting feedback from your patients, so patient experience surveys. And so here again, we want to touch on all these different areas of the patient journey, but it's going to be less about an objective measure and more about the experience. How do they feel about it? How do they feel about the level of service that was provided at each step along the way? And ideally, what we'll then do is take these two programs, the mystery shopping and the survey data, and blend those together through analytics to learn, okay, of all these things we're measuring, what's most important to the patient? So of these 25, 30, 50, 60 things that we might be measuring, what are the handful that my practice really needs to focus on that's going to help me move the needle and maximize my ability to delight my patients and get them to come back and visit me more often? And so that's really, we've got a team of PhDs and data scientists who are going to do some very complex modeling, but the heart of it is what we want to do is identify the best practices, enable Prima and Lauren's team to then work with you and create action plans. And this is where we move to step 4 here, knowledge force, to really leverage this information. And so you're going to have access as part of this program to an online platform where you can access all the results specifically for your practice. And in addition to that, you can see how you rank and stack against everybody else within the Prima network. But a couple points about this. As you get in and start to understand where your deficiencies are, there are literally action planning tools. So your team is going to have the ability to create action plans, create thresholds for improvement, and you're going to be able to track progress against those in real time. And one other key component here is that it's mobilely optimized. So you actually don't have to be in the office at the desk. You could be in the grocery store. You could be, waiting in line at the bank, and you could be looking at, and taking in some of this data and tracking performance in real time. So this is kind of the crux of the system. And so what we're going to do is dive in a little bit deeper in certain areas and talk a bit more about what you can expect and how to leverage this information. Lauren, anything to add to that?
I think, and you might have mentioned this, but as far as the mystery shops go, that would be quarterly with this program. So you would have a shopper coming in once per quarter to really go through the full range. And that's something that combined with those surveys that you're doing are really going to give you some fantastic insight and tell you exactly how you're doing in each area. So those two things combine to really give us all those answers.
And one of the things that we can do there as well is partner with Prima. Your practice may find extreme value in the mystery shopping outside of the program as well. So we'll provide an option through Prima to where if you want to be shopped more often and maybe keep your staff more on their toes, we can accommodate that as well. So we can talk about that if that's of interest.
Great. Okay. So we mentioned the customer satisfaction surveys, the patient satisfaction surveys. One question I keep getting from a lot of you guys is, well, what makes those different from the surveys I may already be sending? Like a lot of you guys might have Web System 3, Solution Reach, and there's like a stock survey that comes with it. So we're going to explain a little bit about why, how those are different from the ones that Market Force provides. And the existing ones that you guys get, typically, it's going to be, the questions are usually, it's a single measure of performance. So basically, it's going to be sort of one-off questions, things that are written a little more tactical, not strategic. The questions typically are not going to be very actionable. They're not tied to goals that you can really track or work on as a team. And also, from what I've seen, you don't really get a lot of insight. You might, if somebody gave you a bad review, a bad survey, you might look at it and go, oh, okay, well, we need to reach out to this person if it's really bad. But it's not really going to show you how to increase patient loyalty. It's not going to give you the tools to say, okay, here's how we can measure our improvement and get there over time. And then I will let Sam talk about the market force surveys and how those are going to be different.
Sure, I think that's a great point, Lauren. One of the things that we come up against all the time in our business is what we call the flat line. So when people look at their performance and their scoring, there seems to be very little change in most instances. And the biggest reason for that is the questionnaires aren't designed with the end goal in mind of really driving revenues and driving patient loyalty. They tend to be stock questions. They're used typically for benchmarking, but at the end of the day, they don't provide the insight necessary to allow you to take action. And one of the key problems is just surveys alone is not enough. We need to have multiple lenses, both objective and experiential, because it's the combination of these that allow you to really get down to, okay, I'm getting dinged for friendliness, but what does friendliness mean? Well, we can define that very objectively in a mystery shop and understand exactly your staff's behaviors in those areas. And so when we link those together, we can come back to you and say, guys, when you get dinged for friendliness, 99% of the time, it's because you fail to make eye contact and you don't use the person's last name, for example. That might be a bad example, but I think that articulates the point. The other thing is that you want to be able to sift down and really dig into the data and find where those problem areas are and be able to put action plans in place. Without an action plan, there's really no accountability for driving change. So yeah, we can talk about it, but people tend to forget about it within a couple days or so, and it's just not ingrained into the culture. And so we're going to talk about ways that we can help you to get that ingrained into the culture. Just some simple things you can do with your staff that have the potential for significant improvements when it comes to delighting your customers. Anything else on that?
No, I think that's great. I think really the huge key there is visibility and accountability, because it's something that you're really it's going to be more in your face, whereas the other surveys, like you said, they're probably going to sort of be forgotten about after a while. And the fact that this is going to tie into the same data from the mystery shops is also just huge, because I think just having the mystery shops alone, it's going to tell you a lot, but when you combine those two forces together, it's going to be something that really gives you a full scope of what are patients thinking and how do they react when they come through your practice, and what can you do about it to make it better.
And so, guys, as we think about kind of what makes this different, for me, the proof is really in the pudding. We can talk about a holistic approach, but what I wanted to do is show you physical examples, real life examples of this type of solution in action. And unfortunately, due to confidentiality clauses, I can't show you something within industry, but I think you'll get a sense. But one of the things that we do at Market Force, we have a team of PhDs and data scientists who are going to take all the data from across the Prima group and pull it together and start to do some complex analysis. And within that, really what we're striving to do is answer three main questions. Number one, what matters most to your patients? And so we're going to come back with what we call a Criticality Index. It's basically the handful of things that, when executed in combination, have the greatest impact on patient experience, patient loyalty. Number two is, where are there opportunities for improvement? So we're going to be able to show you different benchmarks. We're going to be able to show you against these things that are most important, how are you specifically doing and where can you improve? And then the third thing is, what's the ROI for change? So we will literally be able to come back with some predictive models that say, guys, if you're in this bucket, this is what you're leaving on the table. This is what you stand to gain if you can improve in these areas. And eventually, once the program has a bit more data and financials, we'll be able to even tie that to things like year-over-year revenue, change in revenue percentage. These are very powerful because it really talks to, okay, now I know why it's so important to coach my staff on this. And so, to give you a high-level example, this is actually from the telecommunications space. So this is AT&T, one of our customers, and And not unlike you guys, there's a process that an AT&T customer goes through in order to get signed up for service. So a lot of times they can call in, they can make an appointment, they go into the store, they have to be seated, then they see a specialist. That specialist asks very specific questions, they provide recommendations, and then they need to ask for the sale. So there's a lot of things that happen that honestly aren't too dissimilar from your practice. So where somebody has to come in, make an appointment, they have to wait to see the doctor, there's the bedside manner that happens with the doctor, there's interaction with the staff, there's what happens when they go to optical sales. So all these different factors. And so in this case, really what we wanted to understand were what impacts sales over on the right. And what we saw here was customer loyalty, so folks that come back, but also folks that refer. And really what drove that for AT&T was their overall level of satisfaction with that in-store experience. And so as we dug a little bit deeper into what is that satisfaction, we started to see three main impacts: product knowledge, friendliness, and cleanliness. So they wanted to make sure that the person they were dealing with was somebody they would like to hang out with, basically. They wanted to make sure as they talked about the product that they felt, this guy actually understands, he knows, I can trust him. And then for cleanliness, they just wanted a clean and inviting atmosphere. Now, that sounds simple enough, but before we started doing mystery shopping, they would get results back that said, hey, you've got a problem with friendliness. Well, they really didn't know how to take action on friendliness based on their survey results. So with mystery shopping, we were able to go in, and what I've just pulled out here was some of the questions related to friendliness, but it was things like, walking to locations. So that was when they went to pick up that person, they just didn't point him in the direction. The salesperson actually came up, got him from the waiting area, and walked him to where they were going to have their conversation. Throughout, did they smile? When they greeted, did they use their name? At the end of the transaction, did they hand them their business card? Did they thank them for the business? Another element that's here is that they walk them to the door at the end. And so there were all these different things that added to friendliness. And so what we're able to do here, and I don't know if you can see it in my drawing here, but there are different levels. So each one of these has a different thickness, which means, greet and thanking for the business were the most important drivers of friendliness. But when we talk to AT&T now, these stores know exactly, or the associates themselves know exactly, when they're talking about friendliness, they know what to look for, and they can see where they weak, where did they miss the mark, and they can do very specific coaching on that. So getting to this level of granularity is really a key differentiator. So when we talk about how do we drive change, how do we coach our staff, we can get to this level. And the good news is, guys, you don't have to do any of this complicated. You don't have to look at any of this. We're going to simplify it and spoon feed it to you guys. Lauren's group is going to sit down and be able to walk you through how do you look at this, how do you rate your own staff, and it's very simplified when it comes to the actual execution. But I think the point here is there's a lot of complexity that goes into getting to these results. Now, one of the things that we noticed specifically with AT&T is when we looked across all these different things, their stores were actually deficient in a lot of cases in 30 or 40 or 50 things. So if you can imagine going back to your staff and saying, guys, I need you to fix these 50 things, their eyes are going to roll back in their head. They're going to go, I don't even know where to start. So this is where the idea of predictive modeling comes in. So in this example, we were able to take their customer surveys, their mystery shopping data, and link it to their most important financial KPI, which is activations. So basically, we're able to identify these 5 things across the 2 measures that, when executed in combination, had the greatest impact on sales. Now, this in itself is very insightful and great, but what was even more exciting for AT&T was when we looked at execution. And so when we looked across all the locations, we had 7 stores in total that only executed on 1 out of these 5 critical drivers. And as a result, they had a relatively small 64 monthly activations on average. And so as you notice, as we go up on the bottom here, we've got the different drivers of execution. So they had 292 stores that were executing on 2 of these drivers. A pretty decent improvement from the ones, but still not very good. Look at what happens when we move up here to the top right. So they actually had about 23% of their system, or 361 locations, that were executing on all 5 of these critical drivers. And so within those locations, they actually saw 244 monthly activations. Now, let me tell you why this is so important. Number one, we nailed the key drivers. So anytime we see this kind of step progression upwards of the key drivers, and as you execute on these, our number one KPI, in this case, activations goes up. And in this case, we saw a 278% increase from the top performers and the worst performers. Now, let me tell you why this is important to you. So as a business, Prima is going to be able to come back to you and say, guys, we've identified the key drivers of patient loyalty, for example. And so the key drivers of patient loyalty are these handful of things. Now, we've looked at your data and we can tell that you're executing on, for example, here, 2 out of these 5. Great job on those 2. Pat everybody on the back, keep promoting those. Let's talk about these 3. Now we've simplified the focus from all these different things that we could potentially look to fix to 3. And now we can put action plans in place and really work with the staff and coach them up on why these are so important. And we can even talk about the ROI and what's in it for you and your staff. And there's even the ability to put kind of incentives behind these and make it fun, get buy-in in terms of, hey guys, if we can improve this, we'll have a pizza party where everybody is we're going to take a half day off on Friday. Or there's different ways to really get folks fired up and engaged and really ingrain this in the culture. We'll talk about that a bit more in a second. So the next step in this process, in this case for AT&T, was understanding the impact on financials itself. And so what we looked at was, what happens when we move from 3 to 5? What can be the impact across the system? But again, this can be driven down to the location level to understand, okay, in dollars and cents, what does this mean to my practice? And so this is the kind of level of detail, and this is some of the differentiation that I was talking about in terms of, it's one thing to have data, it's another thing to have insight from that data. And so our guys work very hard to simplify all this complicated information and boil it down into the handful of things you need to pay attention to so that you can get very effective about where you spend your time and where you coach and train staff members. So guys, that being said, I'm going to switch gears here and start to talk a little bit about the technology platform. And so we mentioned the different data streams, so patient surveys, mystery shops, financial data. And so what you'll have is access to all this information in a single platform. And the goal here is really 3 things. To A, tell you how are you doing right now. B, let you know if you're getting better or worse. And C, help you pinpoint exactly where you need to take action today based on your data specifically. And so one of the key things that's really important about a technology platform is that it's mobilely optimized. So we've invested heavily in making sure that our offering can be rendered on both tablets and smartphones, because we realize that you're not in the office 24/7, you're not behind a computer. So this allows you to access the data where and when you need to access it. So next, I'm going to walk you through just a few slides to give you a feel of what's going to be available to you. The first one, if you're a competitive person, is going to really get you excited. This is what we call a performance scatter plot. So what we have here is a blended index on the bottom called a performance rank. So this is where we take your mystery shop scores and combine them with your survey scores to really come back to you and say, guys, here's how you're performing overall on a scale of 0 to 100. So what you'll see are the worst performers will be here on the left. The best performers will be here on the right in terms of how well they delight their patients. On the left-hand side, we've got sales. And so we'll work with Prima to figure out what's the right sales metric. Is it revenue growth year over year? Is it just sales itself? But basically what you see here is everybody within the Prima system plotted. And so you'll be able to see specifically how you rank against everybody else within the Prima group. And this is powerful because it tells you a few things based on where you're positioned. So let's talk about that. Here in the top right, these are kind of the best performers. These are the best practice players. If you're in this group, you can pat yourself on the back and say, wow, we're doing a very good job. We need to keep it up. And so it's great to know that. If I'm down here in this group, I need to start to worry a little bit. I need to think long and hard about what we're doing, both operationally and financially. In this case, there tends to be in these type of practices bad employee morale. In these practices, and it may be somebody on the call, but there tends to be absentee ownership. And so there's some real opportunities to improve. And as you think about this, it's a very different strategy bucket. It's very different conversations that you have with your staff than, let's say, a group that's up here. So as you move up to this top level, you say, wow, I'm pretty good financially. However, when I look at how well I delight my patients, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. There's a lot of room for improvement, and I may need to dig in and see why. Is my staff overwhelmed? Do I need to augment? And if I augment, can I improve these scores? And if I improve these scores, how much can I improve my revenue? So there's all kinds of ways that we can look and slice and dice this data based on where you fit. The last group we'll talk about here is this bottom right. Here we've got solid execution. You do a nice job of delighting your patients. However, you're lacking in financials compared to others. And so you may want to take a look at what kind of local area marketing are you doing? Are there ways to get more involved with the community? How do you get the word out? Take notes about your location. Do you need to potentially move the practice to a new location? All these things we can talk about. And really, this is a great tool not only for you, but for Prima. Mm-hmm. So they can come in and they can talk to these groups up here and figure out what are they doing in all these different areas. When it comes to the Criticality Index, we can start to figure out, how do they deliver? How do they train? How do they coach? And come back and they can hold seminars and work with you individually on the right strategy based on what bucket you fall into.
I love this feature. And by the way, if you have multiple locations, this kind of thing is why you really, really need to sign up. I think it's just so fantastic for you to be able to see several of your locations, even if it's just two. You can compare them against one another, and not just in this particular slide either. There's going to be a lot of other reports that get generated that are going to be able to help you say, okay, how is this one doing compared to this one? And we can help you analyze and figure out why that may be and how we can help you get all of them closer to the same level and on the same page.
So guys, as Lauren pointed out, there is a lot of information. There are a lot of reports. There are a lot of tools available to you. But we like to take kind of a crawl, walk, run approach. So we're not going to overwhelm you with a bunch of data and reports that you're going to drown in. So one of the first things we'll do is hold training sessions on guys. As you're getting used to this system, we recommend looking at these 3 or 4 data views, for example, or these 3 or 4 reports. And you don't always have to log into the system. There are tools and exporting capabilities that allow us to send these to you automatically. So if you say, I want to see this at 10 a.m. on Monday mornings, it can be sent directly to your inbox. You don't even have to log in. You just open your email, click on the report, and there it is for you. You can also email it to other people within the organization. So if you saw something come up, you can say, hey, I want you to dig into this. Here's the report. Go look in the system and tell me what's going on. So there's lots of different tools built into the system to allow you the flexibility you need. Also, as you look at these different reports, and we'll talk about this one specifically, but there's lots of different filtering options. So you can look at the data and kind of break it down in different ways. So if you're somebody who really wants to dig in the results and dive deeper and look at it from different angles, you'll have that ability. But we want to make this as easily accessible to each and everybody out there as possible. So there's lots of ways in which we can help you get access to your data. So next up here, we've got what we call the performance performance summary screen. And what we're doing here is first we've got at the top what we call focus areas. Now, in this case, this is an example of a restaurant. But what we do is take all the key elements of the patient experience and we put those across the top. And on the left-hand side, we're going to have all the lenses or ways in which we're measuring that experience. So in our case, we're going to have mystery shops and we're going to have customer surveys. And what this allows you to do is quickly see, okay, where do I have problems? And so all these are kind of what we call fully configurable dashboards, and they allow us to quickly see, okay, red is bad, yellow's okay, and green is good. And so as I look at this, I can quickly drill in and say, okay, where do I need to spend my time? Well, cleanliness, I'm doing okay. I got a red here. I've got a yellow here. Product quality looks pretty good. But service, I've got 2 reds and a yellow. And if I look at my mystery shop, not only am I not doing well, I'm actually getting worse since the last time I was evaluated. So this is something I may want to dig into. So within one click, you can drill into this dashboard and go straight to the mystery shop questions related to service. So within literally 2 clicks, you're starting to dive into the root cause of the problem. And when you get there, you've got the ability to then create an action plan, which we'll talk about here in a second. One other thing I wanted to point out here was down here, you can also see your performance rank. So you can see in all the different focus areas how you rank versus everybody else in the system, and you can also see in total. Another good way to kind of fire up the staff. So if you've got folks that are competitive and you want to make this fun and you want to put prizes attached to it and say, guys, we're at 48%, I'd love to see us to get in top 60%, and we can set goals. And so there's different fun ways, and you can incentivize in different ways, from pizza parties to taking people out to the local bar to giving people a day off of work. So there's lots of ways to really make this fun and get buy-in from the staff. So once you start to drill into the details and you get to a problem area and you want to create action plan, there's tools built right into the platform. Now, one of the things that we're going to recommend is that you include your staff as part of this process. We want to give them ownership. And so what's a really great way to do this is to allow them to look at the data side by side with you and start to dig into the problems. And when we discover a problem area and we realize we want to create a plan, we can have a little brainstorming session, allow them to take ownership and come up with some creative ideas and ways in which they can improve on this and get better at delivering and improving whatever that deficiency is, that defect. And within that, within the system, you can then document, okay, we've all talked about it, we're in full alignment, we now know what we're going to do, and we can enter that into the system along with the threshold for how much we want to improve. So we'll have the exact metric, and we can see that, for example, here we were at 38% in service in our mystery shop. Our goal is to get up to 60%, on our next mystery shop. And so you can put that as a goal. You can do the same thing for the survey data that we're collecting, and then you can then track progress in real time. So you can set a threshold. Okay, we're going to review this on X date. And then here I've got an example of kind of the dashboard, but you can go in and look and see, oh, great, here are all the action plans I have. There are 5 in progress. I can see 4 improved. Fantastic. Let me go give some high fives in the office for the great work we're doing here. Oh, I've got 1 that's doing worse. Let me figure out what's going on here. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's start to get the parties together and see what's going on. Down here, I've actually got the progress chart. So this is where you can log in and very quickly see across all your action plans that are in place in real time, how are you doing? And so what we're doing here is trying to make better, more efficient use of your time. So as opposed to having you go in and have to remember where it was and oh yeah, I think we did bad on that last time. With these action plans, you just go back and go, okay, great, yep, boom, we're doing well. Oh, I need to do some coaching. And so as we think about coaching, one of the best practices I love to recommend, and this is actually from the Ritz-Carlton, and I think everybody who's been to the Ritz-Carlton can attest to the level of service that they provide to their guests, but it's the idea of pre-shift meetings. So one of the things that they do at the Ritz-Carlton, before each shift, they get everybody together, and the shift manager will pick out 1 or 2 employees to cite one of the 10 most important things, or I believe they call them the golden rules of delighting their guests. And so they'll have a member sit in front of the group and talk about the expectation in a specific area of the customer guest experience in their case. And so what that does is ingrain day after day, guys, here are the expectations. Here's why we're doing this. And it allows everybody in the practice to have a complete understanding of the business and what's supposed to happen. So if somebody's sick, somebody's not available, they could step in a pinch in another area of the business and understand extremely well just by hearing regularly what the expectations are. Another thing that goes right along with that, and some folks might find this a little hokey, but if you walk up to any employee at the Ritz, they actually have a card in their pocket that they can pull out at any time that has those 10 golden rules. So as we talk about, like before, the Criticality Index, when we start to come back to and isolate what are those core behaviors that are absolutely imperative delivering a fantastic patient experience, you want to make sure that everybody in your practice knows those backwards and forwards. And if you picked them out on a Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock and asked them to cite those, they can cite them off the top of their head. That's really when you start to get these programs and this idea of patient first, patient experience. That's how we start to ingrain this. And the key is to make it fun. And so there's lots of ways, and we'll be talking with Lauren about this, but I think we could even host some webinars or sessions as the program gets going on ways to really make this exciting, make it fun. And that's really the key, because I can tell you time and time again, no matter what industry, happy employees lead to happy customers, lead to better bottom line results and more money in your pocket at the end of the day. And so really we want to make sure that we're empowering our staff with the tools, with the knowledge, and really with a set of expectations. And so I think there's some real opportunities to help do that here.
Great. No, I think that's really the Ritz-Carlton way, thinking, you know, always everyone being on the same page, really knowing backwards and forwards what is going to make our customers happy, and being able to execute that. So I think that is the key with this program, and with making the patient experience something that is really going to be something that your patients love and talk about and become advocates for you. I think that's the important thing. You know, if somebody delivers a pretty neutral experience, you know, they may not have anything good or bad to say, but they're certainly not going to go tell their friends to go see you. And that's what you want your patients to do. You want to turn them into advocates for you, so that it's going to increase your referrals, increase your sales, and increase your retention. So that's just so key to, you know, it's almost like a combination of HR, staff management, marketing. It's all kinds of good stuff that can be very hard to get right on any given day, especially when you've got 100 million things going on in the practice that you've got to worry about that have nothing to do with the patients. It can be hard to bring the focus back. But that's why I think this program is so wonderful, and I really believe in it, and think it would make a difference in your bottom line, and how your patients are going to feel about you. So let's just kind of recap some of the benefits. We did just, you know, talk about a little bit about increasing the revenue and how that comes in line with all the rest of the numbers 2 through 5. You know, it's improving the patient loyalty, like we just talked about. Increasing the sales, it's, you know, that's a big thing in terms of your optical. You know, I know a lot of you guys talk about how you want to improve your capture rates, and that's something we're going to drill down on and make sure we know, okay, if you're not selling as much as you want to there, why is that? Are they not asking for the sale? Are they not smiling? Are they not thanking you for the business? You know, there may be some underlying reasons there that you're not even aware of. Improving the patient experience, of course, and then providing that visibility and accountability. It's all going to tie back to increasing the revenue, and I think that is something that everybody can get on the same page with. Anything else, Jim?
I think that's
okay.
Very well said. So guys, next up, I think Lauren wants to share a little bit about program investment.
Yeah. So you might have seen some of our emails that talk about some of the details of, you know, what the investment is. So it is, we first of all, we need 50 locations from Prima to sign up for this to get the program off the ground. So for those first 50 who sign up, it's going to look like this. It's $125 a month per location for the year. Now, that's also what we're really going to be doing is it's $1,500 per location per year, regularly $1,750. If you do have multiple locations, you can talk to us, and we'll definitely see if we can work out something to get some of the multiple locations down a little bit. And it's not all going to be due at once. So half of it is going to be due when we get those first 50 locations. So when we have the applications from 50 locations, then we'll let you know, and we'll say, okay, we're going to charge the card that you gave us to make up for half, and then the other half is going to be due when the program actually kicks off. So We expect that to be about 8 or 10 weeks after we get the commitment from 50 locations.
Yep. So there's going to be about an 8-week implementation time frame. And what's exciting is we're about halfway there. So we've got lots of folks already signed up and ready to go. So we just need to bring in a few more folks, and we'll be able to get cracking and get the program implemented. So I know personally there's a lot of folks at Market Force that are very excited about this. It's been a pleasure for me working with Lauren's team, and I think this can do some really great things in terms of really helping you move the needle and maximize your investment in your staff, because at the end of the day, it really comes down to your staff members and how well they can execute on your behalf anytime they're in front of one of your patients. So we look forward to helping you make sure you can maximize that investment.
Great. So I also wanted to mention really quickly, I attached a handout to the webinar control panel, and there should be a tab for you guys to see that, and you should be able to just download it and do what you wish with it. It's a document that Sam and his team put together that goes into more detail about some of the reports and things that you're going to actually see in the program. So that should be helpful for you guys to just thumb through when you get a chance, and let either of us know if you have any questions about that. But be sure that you do download it before the webinar ends. So and that'll be a good resource for you. Let's go into any Q&A, any questions that you guys might have. Feel free to submit some. And we can talk a little bit about the any concerns, questions that you have about how things are getting started. And then we can also talk about how you mentioned earlier, Sam, that we might be able to do some follow-up webinars and things that do go into a little more details. We didn't want to overwhelm anybody in this one today. We wanted to make sure we give you a good overview of everything. So hopefully that served its purpose. But if anybody out there wants to see anything in more detail, how Knowledge Force is set up, we can definitely go into more about that a little bit later.
Absolutely. So I'm happy to do any sort of demo of the system or anything that might be beneficial for folks to see.
Yeah. So one of the questions a lot is based around, okay, so I've heard of mystery shopping. This is cool, but why couldn't I just go and get Market Force to help me on my own, or some other company? What if I went that route instead? And I'll let you kind of answer that.
So the number one probably answer to that is cost. So if anybody's ever tried to do their own mystery shopping, I think they might realize how difficult it is to get somebody in, to coach them up, to follow all the instructions, to fill it out, to then aggregate all that data, be able to see trending over time, be able to pull out real insights from that data. And so one of the keys to a really good mystery shopping program is that there's enough, frankly, volume that you can spread the cost of executing these out over a wide number of locations. And so Prima's really provided that ability to do that, to where you've got not only a program that's cost effective, but one that's going to provide real insights. And so if you're doing this kind of one-off, typically there's simply not enough data to come back and say, okay, this is more important than another. So let's say you get a mystery shop report back and you get dinged in 10 out of the 25 questions. Well, what do you start fixing first? What's most paramount? And while you may have a guess, it's nice when analytics come back and can tie that back to an ROI that says, absolutely, guys, here it is, and here's why it's so important. Here's how important it is monetarily. And so I think those are some of the things that are a little bit different. And what Prima's done is a fantastic job of putting together a package that's in my mind, really cost effective, even compared to what we've seen with other programs out there. So I would love to have any feedback on that. Even outside of this session, if you want to reach out to Lauren, we'd love to talk about that more.
Yeah, and I think that's something we can definitely help you answer any more questions on. Another thing too, a question would be, what happens with the payment from the patient, the mystery shopper who's coming through? How do they actually make it a secret? How is it a mystery? Wouldn't we know if do they then say, okay, just kidding, we're not going to pay for this? How does it work on the back end with Market Force? in terms of the patient, the mystery shopper?
So we've got a team of folks that work with the mystery shoppers to make sure that when it comes time to paying them for their services, basically they're going to pay you in cash. And so they're not going to go through insurance. They're not going to go through other measures because it's a simple way to allow them just to kind of go through the process, experience it without having to get into any gray areas. And so that's part of what our program and part of what our folks do are facilitate those shoppers to come in. We've already got relationships with them. They're independent contractors that basically partner on behalf of Market Force. And so we've already got an existing business relationship with them, which makes it very easy for us to recruit them to come in and assess your business.
Guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and submit those, and we'll give it another minute. But, we're also available via email or phone. And in terms of actually signing up, the easiest thing to do is for you guys just to call or email me or Elise here at Prima, and we'll get you the application. It's just a short one-page thing to fill out. And then we'll have your information on file, and I'm just going to keep you in the loop up until we actually have that 50th location and we say, okay, we're good to go. And then the ball's going to start rolling. And another cool thing, too, is if you are one of these first 50 locations who gets going, we're going to definitely be looking to you for input in how we're actually building out the program itself. Because the cool thing about it is this is a brand new venture. This is something that Market Force does this all the time with other companies, other industries, but in terms of Prima Eye Group, this is going to be totally custom. So we're going to be making sure, Prima, we have a good idea of what are the main things that are going to be important to include here, and so does Market Force, but we're going to want input from you as well. So during that process, it's definitely something that we'll be looking forward to creating along with Market Force, and it'll be cool for you guys to have a hand in the program development. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for signing on and spending your afternoon with us. Here's our contact information. You guys can call the main office to speak with me if you'd like. My email address is there. And any other questions, I'm happy to answer. And I hope you guys have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time.